Okay, good evening, class. Now let's start with the chapter on strategy implementation and control. Okay, right. So we first need to know what you mean by strategy implementation, and first thing is where we talk of strategy implementation, and then and global strategy, right? Where we will be discussing about the international entry, international coordination, stages of international development, international employment, measurement of performance. Then we have strategy implementation, where we talk of organization and structure, strategy implementation, what must be done, how it is to be implemented, organization for action, flexible types of organization structure, re-engineering and strategy implementation. Then comes up is the staffing and directing. And lastly, we have evaluation and control, where we talk of measuring performance, balanced scorecard, KPM, benchmarking. We talk of strategic information system and problems in measuring performance. So this is how the entire chapter is uh, studied. Okay, this is how we are going to go about. This is how it's divided. Okay, so we start with strategy implementation and global entry, right? Now, global entry, when we talk, we're talking of what happens. It's an international entry, right? Entry by MNCs, right? And so, what has to be there is there has to be a coordination, international coordination amongst these, with your firm, if you have a business, as well as firms from other countries. Then when we there has to be proper strategies to help in the development of international development. There has to be international employment happening, and also measurement of performances happening. So what is international entry, right? So when we talk of global strategy, it's we are talking of all the activities that an organization is taking to compete in markets outside their home country. And some of the popular international entry is one is exporting. Exporting is what? This is basically you're manufacturing your products in your own country and selling it outside, which helps in minimizing risk and experiment with a specific product, right? Then we talk of licensing, where the business grants rights to another business in the host country to produce or sell, and the licensee gets compensation for technical and marketing. We talk of franchising, where grant rights is given to another company to open a retail store using the franchise's name and operating systems, and the franchisee gets certain percentage of its sales as a loyalty. Joint ventures. Joint ventures is where this is where companies they combine resources and expertise to develop new products. Acquisition is purchasing of one country, the host country, to take advantage of the product lines and distribution networks. Greenfield development, where the companies choose to establish their own manufacturing plant and distribution system, allowing them freedom to design their own plants, choosing suppliers, hiring workforce. And production sharing, this is also called outsourcing, where combining the higher labor skills and technology available in other countries, developed countries, with the lower cost available in developing countries. So, next comes up is international coordination or international strategic alliances. What is strategic alliances? Strategic alliances, as we say, joint ventures or licensing agreements, right? So, it's collaboration between the MNC and the local partner, right? And what are the key drivers of such strategic fit? One, the partners must agree on certain fundamental values, have a shared vision about the potential for joint value creation. They must be this strategy must be derived from business, corporate, and functional strategy, and it must be important to both the partners, especially to top management. Partners must be mutually dependent on each other for achieving clear and realistic objectives. Joint ventures, joint activities, in case of joint venture, joint activities must have added value for customers and the partners. It must be accepted by the stakeholders, and partners contribute their key strengths and protect the core competencies. Okay, next comes up is the stages for international development. First is stage is domestic company, where domestic company here is they export some of their products through local dealers and distributors in the foreign countries. Second stage is domestic company with export division, right, where the company eliminates their middlemen and establish their own sales division, which is taking care of the exports. Third stage is primarily domestic company with international division. So they now establish their manufacturing units in addition to marketing and sales divisions. Then comes up is MNC with multi-domestic emphasis. So MNC, where they're investing, they increase their investment companies in other countries, right, by establishing a local operating division in the host country. Next comes up is MNC with global emphasis. Now, successful MNCs then will make their managers responsible for dealing with both the international and domestic issues. So here, what they will have is HR, R&D, and financial strategies. Okay. Next is international employment. Now, when there is an international expansion happening, which requires huge investment in sending employees abroad, right? And so but what happens up here is like through research it has been found out that many expats return without completion of assignments as they are not happy with their foreign country. So this is because of lack of education on that foreign customs and values. So there is a cultural differences which must be taken into account, right, where before sending the person up there, and to fit the HR and managerial styles of the foreign work environment. So expatriation process can be improved. How? These are the process. Getting detailed information about foreign investment, choosing individuals that are open to the assignment and who can adapt to new environment, assign mentors in both the home and new country, developing a means of maintaining very open, frequent and communication throughout the assignment, who can able to design a plan of repatriation at least 6 months before the assignment, and building a platform for sharing experiences, lessons learned within the company. Okay, so then how to measure performances? Issues related to MNC's operation are measured through return on investment. Okay, it's the most widely used measure. Like it faces difficulties such as with regard to foreign currencies, accounting system, inflation rates, tax laws, right? Because of the difference in the type of nature of currencies, the difference in type of accounting systems. But although the there is a worldwide adoption of IFRS, but enforcement and implementation of international rules have become very difficult. Why? Because of interpretation of this in different cultural contexts. It's interpreted in different way in different countries. So there is difference in the standards of products and services, right, with regards to safety, environment, energy and efficiency testing procedures. Also, there is loss of control on foreign units. Okay. So, strategy and implementation next comes up. Okay, organizing and structure. So these are the things we will talk of. Strategy implementation. Next, what must be done, how strategy is implemented. It's organizing for action, flexible types of organization structure, engineering and strategy implementation. Strategy implementation. What do you mean by strategy implementation? We're talking of all the activities and choices which is needed for executing a strategic plan. Okay, so it's the process by which the objectives, strategies, and policies are put into action. How? With the help of developing programs and tactics, business budgets, and procedures. And poor implementation happens. Why? They are happening due to strategic failures. Mergers and acquisition failures are also due to poor communication, unrealistic synergy expectations, structural problems. There is absence of master communication, lack of top management commitment, unclear strategic fit. So, for successful implementation, the following questions must be considered, right? Who are the people who would be carrying out? What must be done to align the company's operation in the new intended direction, and how is everyone going to work on to achieve this? So who implements the strategy? right? So irrespective of the company's size, everyone in the organization is involved in implementing the strategy. Everyone. Okay, so success of strategy implementation is determined by involvement of every employee in the organization, right? But but however, what happens, these people contribute very little to strategy development, hence which is why strategies fail to include a lot of data and work in the formulation, right? So therefore, involving people both in the formulation and implementation process from every division and every organization levels is important in order to reduce and eliminate resistance of new plans and projects in an organization, which would also result in organizational performance. Involve everyone for success. So, what must be done? That's the next thing. What must be done? So, an organization must develop plans, budgets, procedures to implement strategic change. How? Through having a coordination amongst different department and functional managers. So, what in order to do that, there has to be proper programs and tactics. When we talk of tactics, we're talking of timing tactics, when to compete. That is very important. When to implement a strategy. It could be a first mover. That is where you can establish your reputation as an industry leader, right? And achieve cost leadership, earn a huge temporary high profit. Also, you can achieve greater market share because you're the first there setting new standards for customers. Okay, but you need to see, these companies need to exploit resources to exploit markets and defend their positions. And the other type, when we talk of timing, it's late mover who can reduce cost and R&D as they can imitate the first movers. They have lower risk by waiting until a new technological standard is established. So the question that comes up is, should a company pursue a first mover or a late mover tactic? What do you think, and why? So now, when we talk of the second type is market location tactics, where to implement, right? So it could be an offensive strategy where you establish market location, or defensive strategy, where you have your own current market location as a defensive against possible attack by a rival. Okay. Now, going a little more into offensive strategy, it could be frontal attack, that is head to head competition from price to promotion, right? It could be flanking maneuver when you were attacking a part of the market where the competitor is weak. Bypass attack, where change the rules of the game, right? In order to make the competitor's products unnecessary. Encirclement, where you attack the competitor at both the product and the market by offering wide variety of product range from low price to high price and serving more markets. And guerrilla warfare, where adopting both conventional and unconventional way of competing, right? Selectively attack rivals whenever they exploit the situation to their advantage. Now, talking of defensive strategy, first comes up is raise the structural barriers, entry barriers. Entry barriers to block a challenger's logical avenues of attack. Raise the entry barriers. Increase expected retaliation. Defend the erosion of your market share. Wow, by cutting down prices and defending important market segments by counterattacks. And the third way is by lowering the inducement for attach. Reduce the challengers' expectations of future profits in the industry. How? By keeping prices very low and making profits in the incentive very low for new entrants. So next comes up is budgets. Budgets and procedures. So once the plans and programs are developed, the budget process comes up, right? And after this has been approved, after the budget gets approved, then the procedures has to be developed. Procedures, which is also called the standard operating procedures. What are they? Or they are also called the organization routines. They are the details of activities that has to be carried out in an organization. So what must be done? achieving synergy, that is coordination amongst all departments and functions, is very, very needed, very much crucial, plays a crucial role for strategic implementation. And there can be 6 types of synergy. One is sharing of know-how, coordination of strategies, sharing tangible resources, economies of scale or scope, pooling the negotiating power, and new business creation. Right. So, organizing, then comes up the organizing for action, how the strategy will be implemented. First, there are different stages of corporate development. The first is simple structure, which comprises of the entrepreneur and small team who makes all the important decisions and are involved in every detail of the organization. Then comes up is functional structure, where the entrepreneur is replaced by functional managers, right? So, if a if a stage 1 entrepreneur becomes CEO at the stage, he must learn to delegate and require substantial change in management style. Then stage 3 is divisional structure. Due to diverse product lines, the firm decentralizes its decision making to central headquarters and various divisions. Right? And then stage 4 is beyond the SBU, strategic business units. Where strategic business units may result in red tape crisis as the organization has become too large and complex to be managed, from formal programs and which can manage through formal programs and rapid systems. So, flexible types of organizational structure. Next. So flexible types, the first type of type is matrix structure, which is a functional and product forms are combined together, right? Employees have 2 managers, product or project manager and a functional manager. Network structure, where many productions are outsourced, right? Through and they follow some radical organizational design, right? And these are the virtual organizations which are growing through, which have been successful due to the growth of internet, right? And there is a collaboration of resources without actually being physically present. Modular structure, which is composed of cells, that is self-managing teams, autonomous business units, which can operate alone but can interact with other cells to produce a more potent and competent business mechanism, right? Okay. Next is re-engineering and strategy implementation. What is re-engineering? Re-engineering is a radical redesign of business processes for achieving major gains in cost, service, or time. Right? They just move away from the old rules and procedures to develop and become ingrained in every organization over the years. So we need to have principles of re-engineering, organizing the around the outcomes and not the task. Have those who use the output of the process perform the task. As subsume information processing work into real work that produces information. Treat the geographically dispersed resources as though they are centralized. Link parallel activities instead of integrating the results. Put the decision point where the work is performed and build control in the process, capture information once and at the source. Okay, so when we talk of re-engineering, what there is something called the process of Six Sigma, right? So what happens up here? First is to define the process where the results are poorer than average, and then measure the process to exactly determine the current performance, then analyze the information to find out where exactly things went wrong. And once you get to know, then improve the process and eliminate the error and establish controls to prevent future defects from occurring. Okay. Then designing jobs to implement strategy. There are different ways to design jobs. One is job enlargement, where combining tasks to give a worker more of the same type of duties. Job characteristics, so using job characteristics to improve the employee motivation. Job rotation, moving workers through several jobs to increase variety, job enrichment, altering jobs by giving worker more autonomy and control over activities. Okay. Then we have centralization versus decentralization. What is centralization? Which is operating as a vast interlocking system that achieves synergy. And decentralization, where local managers can make decisions necessary to meet the demands of the local market. Right? So, this is how an organization works. Now, what happens? MNC structure themselves in product groups and geographical groups. MNC. Okay, so they structure themselves. Product group is centralized decision making along product lines and reduce costs. And geographic groups is area structure, tailor products to different regions and achieve regional coordination. Next topic is staffing, right? Now, the implementation of new strategies and policies, when it happens, it will also call for new HR involvement, priorities, and also a different use of personnel. So when we talk of such staffing issues, it involves hiring new people with new skills, firing people with inappropriate or substandard skills, and also training existing people to learn new skills, right? uh, Talent management policies and programs have higher returns on sales, investment, assets, and equity. So it's needed. Growth strategies require hiring of new people, right? Experienced people, hiring of new people is required. For integration, companies appoint integration managers to prepare competitive profile of the combined company and prepare a plan to actually close the gap between reality and ideal. So such managers do need to have deep knowledge of the acquiring company. They need to have a flexible management style, ability to work in cross-functional project teams, willing to work well with people from all background, emotions, and cultural intelligence. Okay. Now, growth strategies require hiring of new people. Now, these experienced people should be placed in a newly created managerial positions. And for integration, companies should appoint integration managers, right? For retrenchment strategy, large number of people may have to be laid off. Management need to decide whether to fire them on the basis of seniority or performance. Now, strategy follows when we talk to have successful strategy. Sorry, staffing follows strategy. Okay, type of staffing really depends on the strategy. Changing, hiring, and requiring techniques, requirements. Changing hiring and training requirements. Hire different people or retain current employees. Deciding the training that is best for implementing changes, pursuing low cost training and development. Then matching the manager to the strategy. Dynamic industry expert, whether to have a new CEO for concentration strategy, analytical portfolio manager for diversification strategy, cautious profit planner when we talk of stability strategy, turnaround specialist when we come in case of weak companies to save the company, and professional liquidator if the company cannot be saved. So have to decide what type of manager is needed depends on the type of strategy. That's why staffing follows strategy. Selection and management development. Okay, so first thing that comes up is executive succession. Should it be an insider or an outsider? Executive succession is replacement of the top. It means replacement of the top management, which also involves the board in for identifying the candidate against the outside candidates. Once the outside CEO can be risky. Why? As they tend to introduce significant change and high turnover among the current top managers because they are not aware of the present system, they are outsiders. So, next is identifying abilities and potential, PMS, performance management system, to identify good performers with promotion potential. Assessment centers to evaluate a person's suitability for an advanced position. by using special interviews, management games, case analysis, leadership group discussions, decision making exercises, oral presentation, and also job rotation, having employees move from one job to another, which allows them to experience different level of organizational learning. Now, what are the problems in retrenchment? Downsizing, right? Which is also called right sizing or resizing. Like it's planned elimination of positions or jobs. Short-term benefits of downsizing is, of course, increased stock prices, but it can overburden the remaining employees and seriously damage the learning capacity of the organizations because the existing employees, remaining employees, will be burdened with excess work, so which would result in the decrease in creativity and also affect new product development. So it happened in 2008 when Starbucks had laid off 7,000 people, right, to refocus the business on coffee experience. So as a result, it started performing better. So and what happens, a retrenchment strategy works better not for narrowing focus of the business. Right. So what are the problems in retrenchment? So, what has to be done? Guidelines for successful downsizing. What can be done? Eliminate unnecessary work instead of making across the board cuts. Contract out work that others can do cheaper, can be done. Plan for long run efficiencies. Communicate the reasons for actions to people. Invest in the remaining employees and develop value added jobs to balance out job elimination. Okay. Next that we have is leading. Implementation involves also leading people. How? Leading people um, through utilizing their abilities and skills in a most effective and efficient manner for achieving the objectives of the organization. Now, this cannot be done if there is no proper direction given. So, without direction, what happens? People will start doing work as per their own personal views, opinions, right? So, direction forms a, is plays a crucial role in the leadership, management leadership, right? Communication norms, behavior from the corporate culture, agreements among workers, and autonomous work groups. Okay, how to manage the corporate culture, right? Now, one is where we talk of a strong culture that would make implementation of change in mission, objectives, strategies, policy, and tactics difficult. Culture has strong tendency to resist change as it enable on stable relationships and patterns of behavior. Okay. Uh, there is no best corporate culture. An optimum culture would should support the strategy. Changing a corporate culture takes a long time and effort. Assessing strategy. How will you assess strategy? Through cultural compatibility. That is the proposed strategy compatible with the company's current culture? Can the culture be easily modified to make it more compatible with the new strategy? Is management willing and able to make organizational changes and accept probable delays and a likely increase in cost? And is the management still committed to implementing the strategy? Okay, so this is how it goes about. This is a process. Now, next thing, that is managing cultural change through communication. So, what are the characteristics of successful cultural change? Now, CEO and the other top managers have a strategic vision of what the company should be, should actually become, and communicate that vision to the employees at all level. That should be there, and this vision should be translated into key elements which is necessary to accomplish that vision. So, managing diverse cultures following an acquisition. This is how the process goes. Next comes up is action planning, right? Action plan. What is action plan? It talks of what actions are going to be taken by whom, during what time frame, and with what results. And what is the importance of action plans? It serves as a bridge or a link between strategy formulation and evaluation and control. It also tells us what needs to be done differently from the way operations are currently carried out. A appraisal of performance appraisal, and also talks about the responsibilities for implementing and monitoring for better motivation. Okay. Management by objectives. What is management by objectives? It's a technique which encourages participative decision making through shared goal sharing of all at all organizational level and performance management based on achievement of the stated objectives. Right. So it's talking about uh, participative decision making happens, sharing of their ideas at all levels, and then assessment is done how it's been. So that's called management by objectives, or MBO. It links the objectives of the organizations and the behavior of the individuals, right? So what does it involve? That the process involves, these are the, it involves establishing and communicating organizational objectives, setting individual objectives that help implement organizational ones, developing an action plan of objectives needed to achieve the objectives, periodically reviewing performance as it relates to the objectives, and including the results in the annual performance appraisal. Okay. Total quality management, right? Total quality management, what is total quality management? It's an operational philosophy which is committed to customer satisfaction and continuous improvement. This is really important. Satisfaction of customer and continuous improvement. And where we talk of quality and excellence, and also to being the best in all functions. And the aim of total quality management is to reduce cost and improve quality. So it can be used to implement an overall low cost or a differentiation business strategy. What are the things that is included here? An intense focus on customer satisfaction, internal as well as external customers, accurate measurement of every critical variable in a company's operations, continuous improvement of products and services, new work relationships based on trust and teamwork. Okay. Next, we come to evaluation and control, where we talk of measuring performance using the balance card approach, KPM, benchmarking, and strategic information systems, and the problems. Okay, so evaluation and control process. What do we need to do is determine what to measure, establish standards of performance, measure the actual performance, compare between actual and the standard, and take corrective measures. Okay, well, for measuring performance, when should measures be used? Return on investment and earnings per share. This evaluates one ability to achieve profitability objective, and is inadequate to evaluate other objectives like social responsibility and employee development, right? So for that, what happens is measures that would predict profitability referred as steering controls becomes necessary, which would measure the variables about that affect future profitability, like inventory turnover ratio, customer satisfaction index. So types of controls, right? How do behavior and output controls differ? There are two types of controls. Output controls, it's what is to be accomplished at the end, right? It focuses on the end result, on the behaviors through the use of objectives and performance targets. We have behavior controls, which talks of how something is done, how through policies, rules, standard operating procedures, and orders from a superior, and input controls, that is, we're talking of resources. Input control, resources, the process, how it's done, that's behavior, and output, that is final. Okay, next we talk of ABC, that is activity based costing. Okay, it's an accounting method for allocating indirect and fixed costs to individual products or product lines based on value added activities going into that product. And it's useful in when we construct a value chain, when we do a value chain analysis of companies' activities or making outsourcing decisions. Okay. Now, what happens is we do have traditional costing methods, and ABC estimated overhead costs also is there. Now, traditional costing, when we talk, it talks of simple approach of assigning overhead costs to products based on arbitrary average rate, whereas ABC is much more complex and more accurate. It's assigning indirect cost to activities and then assigning the cost to products based on the product's usage of the activities. But switching from traditional method to ABC can be costly. Despite that, using ABC, management can actually identify the products that adds value to the firm and strategically choose a line for production in the firm. Next, we have enterprise risk management, which is a plan based business strategy which aims to identify, assess, and prepare for any dangers, hazards, and other potentials of disaster, which is both physical and figurative, that may interfere with the organization's objectives and uh, operations. And so, what does this involve? This process involves the identifying the risk using scenario analysis, brainstorming, or performing risk self assessment, then rank the risk using some scale of impact and livelihood, then measure the risk using some standard agreed upon standard. Okay, primary measures of corporate performance. It can be done through traditional financial measures, which is ROI, EPS, ROE, operating cash flows. Other is shareholder value, which is economic value added and the market value added. Okay, now balanced scorecard approach using KPM. Okay, balanced scorecard is what? It combines financial measures that tells the results of actions actually taken along with the financial measures, the combining of the financial measures and operation measures. Operational measures, that is talking of customer satisfaction, internal process, and corporations' innovation and improvement activities. Okay, so it's a combination of financial and operational measures. Now, management develops goals or objectives in each of the following four areas. One is financial. How do we appear to shareholders? ROI, sales growth, cash flow. Then customers. How do customers view us? Customer share, satisfaction, market share, new sales. Internal business perspective. What must we excel at? Cycle time, unit time, and innovation and learning. Can we continue to improve and create value? Technological leadership. Balanced scorecard approach using KPM, evaluating top management and board of directors. Okay, both financial measure and qualitative measure like customer satisfaction and innovation, they are used by board in evaluating the top management. Okay, CEO's ability to establish strategic direction, build a management team, and provide leadership are more crucial for long term. When we talk of long term, so it's the qualitative measure which is more important than the financial measures, though both even the financial measures are taken into consideration for evaluating. Okay, primary measures of divisional and functional performance. So we have resource centers which are used to isolate a unit so that it can be evaluated separately from the rest of the corporations, right? So where we talk of standard cost centers, where we talk of revenue centers, expense centers, profit centers, and investment centers. Okay. Using benchmarking to evaluate performance. Benchmarking. It's the continual process of measuring products, services, and practices against the toughest competitors or those companies recognized as industry leaders. So, how to do it? Identify the area or process that has to be examined, find the behavioral and output measures, select an accessible set of competitors or best practice, calculate the difference among the company's performance measurements and as compared to those of the competitors and determine why there is difference exists. To develop some tactical programs for closing these performance gaps between your firm and the competitors and implement the programs and compare the results once again. Okay. So what are the problems in measuring performance? One is short-term orientation, where managers only consider current tactical or operational issues, tend to neglect the long-term strategic issues. Why? Because of lack of time, do not recognize the importance of long-term issues. They are not evaluated on a long-term basis. Goal displacement, that is where we talk of confusion of means with ends. It could be one is behavior substitution, that people substitute activities that do not lead to goal accomplishment for activities that do lead to goal accomplishment, because the wrong activities are rewarded. So you tend to focus on those activities which do not help in achieving the goals. Sub optimization: when a unit optimizing its goal accomplishment is to the detriment of the organization as a whole. So looking into the optimization of the unit's goals, not the organization's goal. And guidelines for proper control: one is control should involve only the minimum amount of information needed to give a realistic picture of events. That is 80-20 rule. Control should monitor only meaningful activities and results regardless of measurement difficulty. It should be timely so that corrective actions can be taken. Long term and short term end goals should be used. Emphasize the reward of meeting or exceeding standards rather than punishment of failure to meet standards. Okay, so this is the reference that we have, right? So that's all that we have in this chapter. So if there's anything else that you want to talk about, you can tell in the class. Otherwise, that's it.